Ah, Christmas. The loveliest time of year. It's cold outside and you're getting ready to eat some good food and get some presents and there's festivity in the air. But what about when you're incarcerated? Every day is pretty much exactly the same when you're in jail or prison, right? So, is there really any difference in your day-to-day life when it's Christmas in prison? I think you'd be surprised to find that the answer is actually yes. Since I had quite a few Christmases incarcerated, I figured that I'd lump all those stories and experiences together and make it Tales from the Jungle number 17. Christmas in prison. Now, as anybody who's been watching my channel for a while will know, or if you're a delinquent yourself, you will know that jail and prison are two very different things. Jail is a lot more boring, but also a lot more laid back, and prison's a lot more rockin' and rollin'. But there's a lot of stuff to do. Now, I got locked up about 2 months away from Christmas. It was October 8th, so a little over 2 months. And I'd been in county jail for that entire time when I had my very first Christmas in there. It was shortly after my 20th birthday sitting in county jail. And believe it or not, a church showed up on Christmas Eve to sing some carols and pass out some hot chocolate for us. And that was a very kind and sweet gesture. But the mortifying part of it was that a girl that was in my class in high school showed up with her church and came into our pod. Where I was wearing a bright hunter's orange beanie and a tattered, torn up thermal and looked 100% the part of the inmate. Now, when you take into consideration the fact that I was in jail for theoretically making threats basically against her, right? She was a classmate of mine. It was a little bit crazy to see her in there, and I was definitely humiliated. And while the Christmas carols and the hot chocolate and stuff was optional, I wasn't going to miss out on those cookies and hot chocolate. And even though at this point in my life I was an extremely, openly, proudly, devoutly non-spiritual person, I, mortified, got up and sang along, Hark the herald angels sing. Just kind of almost hoping that she wouldn't recognize me, as though she had not sat next to me in class every single day since middle school. So I'm sitting there embarrassed out of my mind, right? And I'm pretty much just hoping to go over there and snatch my little bag of cookies and then make it back to my bunk in the back without any incident. But she made direct eye contact with me as I neared the little hot chocolate cart. And much to my surprise, she actually looked me dead in the face and said, "Josh, I know why you're in here, and I think it's crazy, and you're going to get through this." And she gave me a hug. And of course, the inmates all elbowed me for weeks after that. Oh, who is that girl? Who is that girl? Okay, all right, yeah, you got some. But it wasn't like that. She actually has no idea how much I really appreciated that, because my initial instinct at seeing somebody I'd actually gone to school with was the assumption that she probably hated my guts and thought that I planned to attack people or something like that. It actually meant a lot to me, and it made me really happy. But that was my very first actual Christmas incarcerated. And the next year, in 2013, I was actually at Butner. But keep in mind that I was there for a mental evaluation. I was actually not serving time there. So despite the fact that it was a prison, I myself was not in prison. I was just there for a mental evaluation. But Butner had a nice little shindig. And since they had a multi-$1,000 band room, they had like rack equipment that I didn't even know how to use, They actually put on a really nice Christmas performance. It was like a big get-together, a show and tell, a talent show, if you will. That's what it was. It was a Christmas talent show. And I played bass in it. I actually joined a little band like my first day there, as I did at pretty much every prison that I was at, but he didn't need a guitar player because us guitar players were a dime a dozen. He needed a bass player, so it was one of the first times in my life where I actually really dedicated myself to learning the art of playing the bass guitar as opposed to the normal guitar. But anyways, we played a little concert, and a lot of people stood up and did like freeform poetry, and a lot of people played music. It was really cool, and right there, front dead center, was Bernie Madoff, the notorious Ponzi schemer. He was actually there at the same time as me. Didn't he die? I think he died. Anyways, it was actually an entire little December 23rd, December 24th, Christmas Eve, little get-together, little talent show in the auditorium of the prison. And I was very much shocked at how much legitimate goodwill that there was in the air, man. Inmates were smiling at each other. People were sharing things. It was actually very touching to me to see how much people really actually got along during the holidays, and that a lot of things seemed to slide, and nobody was really in a bad mood. We were all just kind of collectively enjoying the best that we could, Now, like I said, at that point, I only had one foot in prison. I didn't really know the ins and outs of how it worked and why everybody was in such a good mood. But in 2014, I was actually in prison serving time at Talladega. And that's when I found out that almost everybody at every Christmas is on drugs and alcohol. It is what it is. People do that in the free world too, but I personally think that it's almost like the more festive the holiday is supposed to be, the more inclined inmates are to drink. And so at that time of year, there's tons of floods of drugs. There's tons and tons of hooch being cooked, and lots of people making moonshine and stuff like that to let people get really, really over the top. So maybe all that getting along and stuff is really just kind of a high degree coping mechanism where the inmates are just too emotionally exhausted at the prospect of yet another holiday without their family and Jody kissing their girl on the cheek. They're just too worn out to keep up with the day-to-day prison bullshit and politics. And let me tell you, they got down at Talladega. Almost every single little air vent, air duct in every cell, had a stitched up prison pant leg lined with plastic bags, just cooking away some hooch in there. They got the yeast, they got the Mountain Dew, the whole nine in there, ready to go. And believe it or not, you actually do get good food at Christmas. At a lot of holidays, they roll out some pretty decent food for you. They'll actually cook some hot dogs in the grill or whatever. But here's the thing, right? At Christmas time, you get something very, very special with your Christmas food. All right, it's not just a delicious turkey meal and a slice of ham that you won't get the rest of the year, right? The turkey comes wrapped in tinfoil. Let me emphasize that again. The turkey comes wrapped in tinfoil. It is the one time of your inmate life where you are guaranteed to get your hands on possibly the most useful day-to-day metallic substance that you could ever ask for. You can make a pipe out of anything if you got tinfoil. You can wrap up all kinds of stuff. This small handful of tinfoil is worth a whole lot of stamps. So every single inmate gets their ration of their little piece of turkey wrapped up in that tinfoil, and you are wiping that tinfoil with your napkin and folding it up and sticking it in your pocket and bringing it with you, because that is worth a lot of money and there's a lot of uses for it. And perhaps even better than the off-menu meals are the Christmas bags. A lot of people have heard about this. They do this in state prison too. Like Damian Eccles from the West Memphis 3 talked a lot about his Christmas bags, but you are passed out by some benevolent company, I assume, Christmas bags that sometimes have like an orange in them, but it's mostly like Twizzlers and Tootsie Roll Pops and candy that's not available in the commissary, and occasionally a piece of fruit, though they really don't like to do that because, as you know, anytime an inmate gets fruit, it turns into wine immediately. But the Christmas bags are really cool. Everybody really looks forward to them, and they did diminish vastly in size during the time that I was there. And while inmates did pitch a big fit about that, I'm not really one to look a gift horse in the mouth. You know, I mean, it was free candy to begin with. I'm not going to gripe about the fact that there's less in it this year. But even better than that was what the COs did with the leftover candy bags. When I was at Talladega, man, the rec yard COs out there were so laid back. They were like the most goofy bros imaginable. They didn't want to get anybody in trouble. They didn't want to do anything. They would just stand out there and just pretty much hang out with the inmates all day. They were some of the most laid back COs that I've ever seen in my life. And those rec yard COs would get a hold of the extra bags of candy, and they would hold reindeer games on the rec yard and have all the inmates compete in different little games and challenges to win more bags of candy. I'll never forget the best one that I ever saw. There was about a 55, maybe even 60-year-old man. His name was Fox is what they called him. He was a stocky black dude. He worked out a lot, you know, wore his beanie. He was in good shape, man. He's in way better shape than me, and I'm a whole lot younger than he even was at this time, right? Well, the challenge was a full court shot on the basketball court, all right? Nobody was expecting to do this anytime soon. How about Fox walked up, grabbed that basketball and yeeted that mofo all the way across and just completely nothing but netted on the first try. He was like the third person to shoot, too. Like, we were all expecting this, like, hey, get comfortable. This is going to be a little while. Fox sank that thing from full court and snatched that bag of candy out of the CO's hand and walked away like George Jefferson. As I'm sure you can imagine, I wasn't even going to compete for the nothing but net full court shot. No thanks. Throwing some sort of a show or a concert is kind of the tradition as well. That seemed to pursue throughout my years of being in prison, but the difference was that Butner had a nice, cozy indoor auditorium in their chapel. Talladega was like, hey, we want to do a Christmas concert, drag out all of these acoustic guitars with external pickups out into the 30-degree weather and play on the basketball court on Christmas. Hey, look, man, you got to take what you can get. I bet we were out there in that 30-degree weather on the basketball court at Christmas, rocking out, man. That's actually, as a matter of fact, whenever we got the power turned off because I was playing Killing in the Name by Rage Against the Machine, even though we were going to joke and say, yes, sir, I will do what you tell me, they didn't even let me get to it. They didn't let me get to it, and they pulled the power, and they said, no Rage Against the Machine. Wow, big shocker. The machine pulled the plug on Rage Against the Machine. Oh, yeah, I couldn't have seen that coming. And while, of course, it was popular and cool during these concerts to kind of revamp, remix, rock and roll version, a few different Christmas tunes or whatever, I always enjoyed writing original tunes, and one of my very favorites ever was Rudolph Got Stuck in the Razor Wire. I don't really remember the lyrics all that well, but it was based on an old prison joke. Every Christmas Eve, everybody on the rec yard will be standing out there and all of a sudden out of nowhere say, no, Rudolph, watch out for the razor wire, watch out. Which is pretty morbid, but I mean, nobody's in federal prison because they went to too much church. And despite the freezing temperatures and the fact that the only guitars were acoustic with external pickups, we still got out there and delivered that holiday cheer to the masses, damn it. We got out there and we rocked our faces off like we were playing at Madison Square Garden, and I'd do it again if I had the chance. But as you all know, I was pretty introspective during a lot of my time incarcerated, and it really was a moving and beautiful thing to see all the different races and religions and gangs and everything tone it down for at least just the one day, even if it was only to communally agree that we were too miserable to keep fighting. And even though the COs are pretty laid back too at this time of year, you still don't want to fail a breathalyzer or else you're off to the ho-ho-hole. Alright everybody, I will see you very soon. Make sure you follow my Twitch, join the Discord, all those links are down there in the description below, and I will see you very, very soon. Hope you have a miraculous Christmas season, and I'll be back before you know it. I love you guys.